Hey everyone, this week we're going to get into some really basic ways that you can get started working in virtual reality. There are a lot of different applications for this technology, and you might be surprised to learn that Photoshop actually can work in 360 degrees. So I'll show you that in a little bit. But for this introduction to this topic, I figured we should start really easy and we can pull some images from some existing 360 degree resources that you're probably already familiar with, particularly Google Street View. So here you might see on my screen, I have a Google Street View image. This is the Olson family farm. Here's where I grew up. You can see it's a lovely little farm property. We got a nice big red barn. But it's a very sentimental place, but I always like to go back and visit here, just outside of Monticello. But this is an image that I definitely would love to keep. And what I love about the Google Street View is you can see it's 360 degrees. I can go up and down and all around, and I can see basically everything. And so what I was wondering was, is there a way that I can download this as a 360 degree image that I could maybe manipulate or work with in Photoshop? And I was pleased to find out that yes, there is. So what I need to do is I need to go to a website. It's just called istreetview.com. That's just istreetview.com. And if you go there, you'll find that it takes you to a pretty basic, left and right Google Street View looking interface. Over here on the left, though, are the controls that we want. It's kind of fun. I actually lost a little bit of time because I was clicking the random Street View, and it was just taking me to random locations. But I did want the one of the family farm. There's some really strange ones in here. But I did want the one of the family farm. And so all I need to do, if you go to Load Panorama, you'll notice here it says enter a URL of a Street View panorama from Google Maps or Google Earth. So all I need to do is when I am at that location that I want to grab in Google Maps, just go up to your URL bar, copy it, come back into istreetview.com and paste in right here, and then go to load, and then you'll see that it takes you to that location there. Now, unfortunately, it's not just as easy as clicking download and being able to do this. There is some other stuff that you'll need to do. So once I go and click Street View Download 360, you'll see that there's another piece of software that you do need to download. I have downloaded it. It seems safe. It's available for both Windows and Mac OS, so you'll need to download this to your own computer. It's just called Street View Download 360. Once you've got that and you've installed it, you'll find that it looks something like this. There is at the top a location to save to. If I click the folder button, you can see I'm just saving it to a folder called Panoramas, and you can change the name. There's the options between single panorama and multiple panoramas, and we just want to click single. And there is the box for Panorama ID. Now, this is what we can get if we go back to the istreetview.com. If I go over here to the right panel, you'll see here, this is the Panorama ID. So if I just click that, it automatically copies it. And now if I go into the Street View Download 360 application and I paste that Panorama ID, you can see it was exactly the same because I just downloaded it. Then I can go ahead and download it. The last thing you might want to do, the default is set to 13,312 pixels by 6,656 pixels. That's a pretty large file. For what we're doing today and your computer's capabilities, it's probably best to go one step down to 6,656 pixels by 3,328 pixels. It's just a lower file size. It'll be a lot easier. So that's what I picked, and we'll just click that green button for Download Panorama. Actually, it's going to have me rename it because I already have one, but let's give it a new name, and there we go. There's Farm Small 2. Okay, now what we've got is just one image, but let's say I want to think of somewhere that I maybe would want to go that I can just juxtapose with this image. We're going to do just some basic manipulation in this image in Photoshop, and your assignment essentially is going to be to compare, or contrast, or combine, or juxtapose, or mash up, or collage, whatever way you want to do it, two different Google Street View locations in the same panorama. These are going to be kind of our first virtual, surreal 360 worlds that we're going to create. So I did find one here, just a nice like kind of riverfront or not riverfront, lakefront kind of look at the bike paths on Lake Michigan up in Chicago. I thought that one was neat enough to work with, and so I started there. You might look for things that have meaning for you specifically, if there's a place you've always wanted to visit or, two places that you connect together in some way. That can always be fun. But for me, it was just kind of an arbitrary choice. You can obviously spend a little bit more time with this, but we're just going to do the same thing with this one. Let's copy that location, go back into iStreet View, click Load a Panorama, delete the old address and copy in the new one, or paste in the new one, and click Load. And there we go. Here on the right side, in those weird inverted colors, we've got that same shot that I had. So again, we will copy the Pano ID, go to the Street View, download 360, pick our location, go back to Panoramas. I've already got Chicago 1. I'd already prepared this, but let's go to Chicago 2. We'll just call this. Paste in our panorama ID, and then once again make sure we're at that second highest resolution setting, and then we can download. Okay, so now both of my images are downloaded. We can jump right into Photoshop. So once we've opened Photoshop, what we want to do is just open one of those images. And I think for me, the base image is going to be the farm image. So I've got my panoramas folder here. I think I call that farm small 2. Just go ahead and open that up. And there we go. We can see I have opened up this panoramic image, and it is what we call, I can't even remember, rectilinear projection map or something. I'll find out for next week's work. But it has sort of this distorted kind of look around it. You can see that the road as we face, I guess this would be, the west, is kind of in the center, but then it wraps around and curves, and there's kind of a weird distortion here. That's kind of the interesting thing about these 360 images. They're really hard to draw by hand because you have to understand a really strange vision of perspective. But we can work with Photoshop without even really worrying about this. So the first thing I'm going to do, just click this lock off my background layer, and then we'll be ready to edit. So the next thing I want to do probably is then go and get my Chicago image. So let's just drag Chicago over on top, and there we go. We can see now I have two different layers of two different things. I've got my Chicago layer on top. If I click that off, we can see I've got this farm layer on the bottom, Olson Farms. And so what I want to do is I want to start manipulating this in some way. There's a billion different ways you can do this. I'm going to leave a lot of this up to you. But the first thing I want to do is on that top layer, you can see that it's a smart object. So I want to rasterize it so that I can edit it. I can erase pixels out, and I can treat it like it's a painting layer in some way. Okay, so now I've got my rasterized layer. Chicago is here on top. Let's just try a couple different ways that I might manipulate this, mash these things up. So the first way I might do it, you can see here, I've got all of these tools. One thing I can do is just go right down the middle, right? One thing, if you want to find the exact middle of an image, if you have your rulers open, if you don't, you can go to View and then make sure that rulers are checked. But if your rulers at the top and on the left side are visible, if you hover over that and then you click in the ruler and drag out, you get a guide, and you can see it snaps to the dead center of your image. So that can be kind of helpful if you're trying to sync things up. But then I can take my selection tool and it will give me a good way to start finding kind of the center. But I could just select maybe the right half or the left half. In fact, let's just select the left half, and we can delete, and we can kind of see how these images work together, right? It's kind of interesting. I think we can do better, though. One thing I think I might do now is kind of get rid of that guide. Now that I know sort of where it is, I can get rid of my guides by going to View and then Clear Guides. And now we're good to go. So, there it came back because I'm going to undo. Let's try that again. View, Clear Guides. And now we can find maybe a more sophisticated or interesting way to composite these together. If I grab the pen tool, maybe I could make like a zigzag crack in the sky or something along those lines that then spreads down to the ground, and I'm giving it just some size variation here. And then I'm just going to draw like a box around this. Another thing I could do if I don't want to mess around with deleting things, a good option is always to work with masks. So let's just make a selection on this. And now if I click on the Chicago layer, the mask option, we can see it has created a mask with that zigzag shape. So that's a little more interesting, right? I think that could be better. Let's try a softer kind of approach, a softer blend of these things. One thing I might do, let's just create a mask again on that layer. We have it, got rid of the last mask, but here's the one here. And remember, anything that you paint in black will be masked away, meaning we won't see that part of the image. So we can just see how that works here in practice as I get my brush, bring it up in size. You can see anywhere that am painting this black area, you can see it previewed over here in the mask preview panel, that I could kind of erase things away, like this. Really kind of strange, surreal version there. But another thing I might do is even think about like, oh gosh, just trying to like do maybe this side as farm. I might kind of work through this. Just let me kind of take a stab at this and see how it unfolds. Well, that's kind of interesting, So I set the hardness of my brush down to 0. I set the opacity down so I could just take some lighter passes over it, just kind of revealing the farm in this tree here. And that allowed me to kind of just blend the images a little bit better. And so that's kind of cool. I actually kind of like how that looks. Maybe I might go back a couple steps because I think I got too much, but you can see here where I'm going. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to keep both this edge and this edge pretty much uniform. I don't want to erase too much out on that tree here that's on the edge. So actually, I think I still grabbed too much. And you'll see what I mean because let's kind of bring that tree in a little bit without getting into the edge. We want to leave the edges pretty much alone because that's where the seam is. That's where it wraps around and will connect again. And so you just want to be sure that you're being really careful around those areas. I took too much of the city away. I'm happy with the way that is, I think. I can always go back. Since I'm working in a mask, I can set my brush to white and paint some of those things away as well. That's the kind of convenient thing about working in masks. Okay, that looks pretty neat to me. That's kind of an interesting composite, right? We've got this scene of like this rural farm and the city. Let's imagine I wanted to see what this looked like in 3D. Here's the exciting stuff. In Photoshop, up at your top menu in the newer editions, you can go to 3D. Make sure we have both of our layers selected. I'm sorry, so I can either, click one and hold Shift and click the other, or you could click the top layer and then just merge them together into one. If you think you're pretty much set, you don't have any more edits to do, that's totally fine. But we'll go to 3D, go down to Spherical Panorama, and go to New Panorama Layer from Selected Layers. Then Photoshop will do its magic. And here we go. Now we're in a 3D view where I can rotate around. I can see some kind of interesting things happening here. I see some overlaps, some kind of ghostly images. But overall, it's kind of an interesting composite. And so I'm going to leave this up to you. Obviously, that there's a lot of different things that you can do in order to manipulate this image. If I go back, I don't know. Once you're once you're in 3D, you can't go back. I suppose what you could do would be export it again. But let's just say, I'm happy with this. You could play around with selecting things and manipulating the colors. You could, copy and paste other objects into the landscape. But for this one, I think, what I want you to do is just to work in a way where you can composite or juxtapose two different Google Street View images together in the same frame. So let's say I'm pretty happy with that. What we're going to do is create a 360-degree video out of this where it'll just be the still image, but it'll be a video format. And then we can upload that to YouTube where they will handle the 360 processing, and you can view this on your own, even on your phone. So what we need to do first, though, let's say we're happy with this. Just go to 3D, go to Spherical Panorama, and then go to Export Panorama. So now you can see we can just save it as a JPEG. I'm going to call this city-farm in my panorama folder. And now let's see, we can go to my folder and see, oh, pay attention to my messy desktop. Kind of end of the school year stuff here, guys. City Farm, if I look at this, if I open it up again in preview, we can see it looks, you know, like a panorama image, like we would expect like that, but with my edits made. Okay, next thing we need to do, we need to open up Premiere. Premiere is the software that will allow us to code this video as a virtual reality video. We're kind of playing a trick here. You know, that Premiere is a really robust software. We're going to use it in a really simple way just to put like a little bit of information in the code of the file so that when we upload it to YouTube, it thinks it's a 360-degree video. Okay, so all we need to do, create a new project. Let's just call this anything, Panorama. If you do need to go to the lab to do this part, we do have Premiere loaded on the computers in the lab in Doudna. You can always do the VMware for this to access it remotely, and I think it should work fine since we're really not using it for anything complicated. Just click OK when you're ready. That'll bring up a new Premiere project file as soon as my rainbow wheel stops spinning. And the first thing we want to do, go ahead, just drag our finished product, that final image of the composite, into our project file. Oops, it opened it up. Drag that down. Oops, having a real hard time with my trackpad here, guys. There we go. Drag that into my project panel. You can also go up, you know, and go to import, if that's a little bit easy for you, and then you'll see where your project panel is located. But once I have that, it's really pretty simple. I click on the icon for that clip, that image in our project panel, scroll down, go to New Sequence from Clip, and there we have a timeline that is just about, I think, 5 or 6 seconds. 5 seconds of our image, static image. If I click on that pink little icon there, that's our video file, our clip there. I can drag that out. Since we're going to be previewing this on YouTube, you might want to put on like a headset or something. If you have like a virtual reality headset that you just plug your phone into, those can be kind of fun to fool around with. But here I just set it to about a minute. Again, I want to put my cursor at the very end where I want my clip to end. I can click Mark Out. That's going to tell it at this point we want to stop that export when we do it. And now all I have to do, go up to File, Export, and Media. So that's really all we needed to do in Premiere until we get to this stage. Once again, I'm going to click my output name here of City Farm. We'll call this VR clip just to be sure we know what we're dealing with, and then Panorama folder again. Go ahead and click Save. We want to make sure it's set to H.264, which creates an MP4 file. I have no idea what the connection is between those two different codes, but that's the way it works. You know, we don't have to have the box for export audio checked, but it doesn't hurt. You know, it's not going to give us any sort of issues. But here, down here, in this next panel, you'll see that we should have video highlighted. If you don't, make sure that you have video highlighted. And as you scroll down all the way to the bottom, there's one little box at the very end that says VR video. If you just click Video is VR, that's all you really need to know. That's all you really need to do. You can leave it at monoscopic. You can leave the horizontal field of view at 360 degrees, since you can see 360 degrees all around you. And the vertical field of view is 180 degrees, which means we won't really be able to look down much, but we don't really need to. So once we're happy with that, let's just go ahead and click Export. And this should take a few minutes. Okay, once your video file has exported out, what we want to do is just go ahead to your YouTube channel. You will need to sign up for a YouTube channel in order to do this. And we're going to go ahead and click that Create button and just upload a video. That's all we're going to need to do is just upload this video, so we can select the file. Let's again go to the Panorama folder to find it because my computer's a mess. And we'll find City Farm VR Clip .mp4. That's the one we named it. Now I just have to call this what I want. I'll just call this city/farm. You can give it a description if you want, but it's going to take a little bit of time to kind of process. Now, there's no box we need to check here to make sure that it's VR or anything. YouTube, if we've done our job right on our end, should just understand it. It'll read the file. It'll find that little bit of metadata code, and it will just automatically know this. So let's just go ahead and click through, save or publish. And click save, and then it'll take, I'm not sure how long it'll take actually to kind of load up, but once we click save or publish, let's make this public. Publish. Okay, there we go. So it's going to finish processing. You can see it's going to take us some time, but I have done some other examples with this. So if you're interested in seeing this, this is one that I did just doing like a hand-drawn thing. I did this on a sheet of paper and brought it into Photoshop and kind of colored it in. And I had this was really like my first try at this. So it's pretty sloppy, but I just found that was kind of fun that you could do this on paper even if you wanted, if you had the know-how. I've done a couple others just dealing with artwork that I've created. Here's a watercolor painting I did in the same dimensions, which is basically 2:1 dimensions. And that one turned out pretty neat too. So here is my watercolor. It wasn't so detailed, but I like that I could get like that paper texture. I probably could work in higher resolution when I'm doing stuff like this or thinking a little bit more about depth. But that was another experiment that I did, kind of nice atmospheric watercolor. And this is one that I did with some photos that I've actually worked with over the years. So these are like highly manipulated photos that I've taken, kind of a series that I produced where I go out at night and I shoot with a flashlight and then I invert the photos and it ends up looking like kind of these snowy scenes. But this was just kind of compositing them together, working with this process to kind of erase the seam. And so, I find this really kind of a promising, approach to making interesting types of art. So we can just go ahead and wait, go back to my channel. We'll see if it's finished processing. And if it isn't, we'll come back and check. So those are just a few examples that I have. I'm going to post the link to my example from today that I just walked you through in the D2L, so you can go ahead and see that one as it worked out. But in the meantime, I hope you have fun with this little project. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. This is something that's fairly new to me too, but if you have special things that you're wanting to try out, pitch them to me and I'll be happy to help you.